London, 1666. A city on the cusp of calamity. Streets, narrow and teeming, overflowed with merchants hawking their wares. The air, thick with the scent of fresh bread and spices, was a sensory symphony of urban life. Children, oblivious to the impending doom, darted between the legs of passers-by. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, a disaster was brewing. The summer had been unusually harsh, a relentless sun baking the city day after day. The River Thames, usually a lifeline, dwindled under the oppressive heat. Buildings, constructed primarily of timber and thatch, stood shoulder to shoulder, tinderboxes primed for ignition. The very essence of London, its density and reliance on flammable materials, had inadvertently set the stage for a tragedy, a city blissfully unaware of the inferno that awaits. The night of September 2nd descended upon London, cloaking its bustling streets in an eerie quiet. In Pudding Lane, Thomas Farriner, the King's baker, finished his shift. Unaware of the inferno he was about to unleash, Farriner banked the embers of his oven. A single smouldering ember escaped its confines. It drifted, landing unnoticed amidst a pile of dry kindling and straw. The tinder, parched from the relentless summer heat, ignited instantly. Flames, small and seemingly insignificant at first, danced in the darkness. Like a living entity, the fire greedily devoured the dry wood and thatch. The baker, oblivious to the burgeoning inferno, slept soundly. The fire, fueled by a potent combination of human carelessness and environmental factors, spread rapidly. It snaked its way through the bakery, engulfing everything in its path. Flames, like hungry serpents, licked at the wooden beams. The fire's glow, an eerie orange against the inky blackness, began to illuminate the narrow alleyway. The coming inferno was now inevitable. As the fire in Farriner's bakery gained strength, it cast an eerie, flickering glow across the sleeping city. The night, usually cool and quiet, began to take on an unusual warmth. A gentle breeze picked up, carrying with it the faint scent of burning wood. This unfamiliar aroma wafted through the narrow streets, reaching the nostrils of sleeping Londoners. Some, their sleep-light and easily disturbed, stirred in their beds. They attributed the unusual warmth to the summer night, seeking respite from the oppressive heat. Little did they know that the very air they breathed was being tainted by the harbinger of their city's imminent destruction. In the homes surrounding the bakery, the fire's heat grew more intense. Glass windows, already warm from the summer sun, began to crack and shatter under the intense heat. The sound, sharp and sudden, pierced the night. Still, the fire remained a largely unnoticed menace. But it wouldn't be long before the fire, like a beast roused from its slumber, would reveal itself in all its terrifying glory. The fire, having devoured the bakery, was hungry for more. It leapt across the narrow alleyway, reaching for new fuel. The first cries of alarm, piercing and desperate, shattered the pre-dawn stillness. The fire, no longer content with its clandestine rampage, had erupted into full view. The sky, moments ago a canvas of darkness, was now ablaze with a terrifying orange glow. The citizens of London, rudely awakened from their slumber, were greeted by a sight that would forever be etched into their nightmares. Panic, swift and merciless, gripped the city. People poured into the streets, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames, their eyes wide with terror. Mothers clutched their children, their voices hoarse from screaming. Men scrambled to salvage what little they could from their homes and businesses. The streets, usually bustling with commerce, were now choked with terrified humanity. Neighbours called out to one another, their voices lost in the cacophony of screams and crashing timber. The fire, unmoved by the plight of the fleeing citizens, continued its relentless advance. The heart of London, once a symbol of prosperity, was now a crucible of chaos and despair. The fire roared its defiance, turning the city's wooden structures into towering pyres. As the sun rose, casting a pale, sickly light upon the inferno, the horrifying reality set in. The fire, far from being contained, was spreading with terrifying speed, fanned by a steady east wind. The rudimentary firefighting techniques of the time proved woefully inadequate. The fire swept through the city like a vengeful god, consuming everything in its path. Wooden houses ignited as if by spontaneous combustion. The narrow, winding streets of London became fiery canyons, channeling the inferno deeper into the heart of the city. Samuel Pepys, a keen observer of London life, awoke to the sounds of chaos and the smell of smoke. His diary entry for that day would become a chilling chronicle of the Great Fire's early hours. Pepys documented the unfolding tragedy, providing a vivid first-hand account of the fear and chaos. But even as Pepys documented the tragedy, he clung to the hope that the fire could be contained. The desperate hope that their beloved city could be saved from utter annihilation. The River Thames, usually a symbol of London's prosperity, had become a terrifying spectacle. Burning debris transformed the river's surface into a sea of fire. The flames danced and shimmered, reflected in the terrified eyes of those who lined the riverbanks. The air, heavy with smoke and the stench of burning wood and flesh, was difficult to breathe. Boats of all sizes plied the Thames, desperately trying to escape the inferno. Families, huddled together, clung to whatever possessions they had managed to salvage. The cries of children, separated from their parents, mingled with the roar of the fire. The heat from the fire ignited wooden structures on the opposite bank of the Thames. The fire leapt across the river, reaching out for new conquests. The bridges that spanned the Thames became death traps, engulfed in flames. The scene on the Thames was a terrifying tableau of chaos and despair. The river, once a source of life, had become a terrifying reflection of the city's impending doom. Could anything stop this inferno before it consumed London entirely? As dawn broke on the second day, the true scale of the disaster became clear. The fire had transformed the heart of London into a raging inferno. Acrid smoke, thick and choking, blotted out the sun. The air, thick with the stench of burning wood and sulphur, was almost unbearable. The fire, driven by a relentless east wind, continued its westward march. The narrow, winding streets of London had become fiery canyons. The roar of the flames was punctuated by the crash of collapsing buildings. The authorities, overwhelmed by the scale and ferocity of the fire, seemed powerless to stop it. The rudimentary firefighting methods proved woefully inadequate. The fire, like a living creature, seemed to thwart every attempt to contain it. The citizens of London fled before the advancing flames, carrying whatever meagre possessions they had managed to salvage. The streets were choked with refugees, a desperate tide of humanity fleeing the inferno. Word of the disaster reached King Charles II at his palace in Whitehall. The king, initially dismissive of the reports, soon realized the gravity of the situation. The fire threatened to consume the entire city, including the royal palace itself. Faced with the potential destruction of his capital, Charles knew he had to act quickly. Summoning his advisors, the king was met with a barrage of conflicting opinions. Some advocated creating fire breaks by demolishing buildings in the fire's path. Others argued for more direct attempts to extinguish the flames. The king, torn between the need for decisive action and the fear of making the wrong decision, hesitated. The delay would prove costly. Every hour saw the fire advance further, consuming more buildings and claiming more lives. Adding to the chaos, rumors began to spread through the terrified populace. Foreign agents, it was whispered, were behind the inferno. Others saw the fire as divine retribution for the city's sins. Even the most rational minds struggled to maintain their composure. With the fire now raging unchecked for over 24 hours, the king gave his consent to the most radical proposal, the creation of fire breaks by demolishing buildings in the fire's path. Armed with gunpowder and tools, teams of men were dispatched into the inferno. The work, carried out amidst the chaos and terror, was fraught with danger. The air was thick with smoke and superheated by the flames. The ground, littered with burning debris, was treacherous underfoot. Yet despite the danger, the men laboured tirelessly. However, the fire seemed determined to thwart their every effort. The wind would often carry burning embers across the newly created fire breaks. The fire could not be contained, only endured. As the second day of the fire drew to a close, a sense of despair began to settle. The fire seemed to be gaining strength with each passing hour. The heart of the city was now a raging inferno. The question was no longer whether London could be saved, but how much of the city would be left standing. As the Great Fire of London raged into its third day, it became a merciless beast. Even the city's most imposing structures proved no match for the Inferno's insatiable hunger. St. Paul's Cathedral, a majestic edifice, was now under siege. The fire, whipped into a frenzy by the relentless east wind, licked at the cathedral's ancient stones. Flames danced across the cathedral's roof, igniting the dry timber and lead sheeting. The heat inside the building became unbearable, melting the lead. The lead rained down upon the firefighters below like molten silver. Their efforts to save the cathedral now seemed futile. The cathedral's great bell, Old Tom, tolled mournfully in the heat. The sound seemed to herald the fall of not just a building, but of an era. As the fire reached its fiery crescendo, St. Paul's succumbed to the inferno. The cathedral's massive stone vault collapsed inwards. The fall of St. Paul's sent a shockwave of despair through the hearts of those who witnessed it, a chilling testament to the fire's indiscriminate power. The city's enduring spirit was now a memory, consumed by the flames. Section 2. A city forsaken. With St. Paul's Cathedral reduced to a smouldering ruin, a sense of utter hopelessness descended upon London. The fire, far from abating, seemed to draw strength from the destruction it had wrought, its flames burning with renewed vigour as it consumed all that remained in its path. The city, once a vibrant hub of commerce and culture, was now a desolate wasteland, its streets littered with rubble and ash, its air thick with smoke and the stench of death. The authorities, overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster and the breakdown of law and order, seemed powerless to act. King Charles II, his initial displays of leadership replaced by a sense of helplessness, retreated to the relative safety of his palace in Whitehall, his once grand court now a shadow of its former glory. The citizens of London, their homes and livelihoods reduced to ashes, were left to fend for themselves. Many, having lost everything, sought refuge in the surrounding fields and villages, their faces etched with the trauma of the inferno, their eyes reflecting the horrors they had witnessed. The streets, once bustling with life, were now eerily deserted. Save for the occasional stray dog, its fur singed and its ribs showing through its emaciated frame. The silence, broken only by the crackling of the dying embers and the mournful cries of the wind, was more unnerving than the inferno's roar. Section 3. Flight from the Inferno. As the Great Fire tightened its grip on London, the city witnessed an exodus of its terrified population. Men, women and children fled the Inferno, carrying whatever they could salvage. The roads were choked with desperate humanity, all fleeing the flames. Families trudged through dust and debris, their footsteps echoing the city's heartbeat. The air was thick with smoke and the sound of weeping. Wealthier citizens fled in carriages, contrasting with those on foot. Despite material advantages, all were united by fear and loss. The exodus was a chaotic spectacle, uniting rich and poor in vulnerability. As the sun set, one question remained: what would become of London? Section 4. Pepys witnessed a disaster. Amidst the chaos of the Great Fire, Samuel Pepys emerged as a chronicler of the disaster. His diary entries provide a vivid account of the Inferno's progress and its impact on London. On the third day, Pepys took to the River Thames to witness the scale of the disaster. His diary captures the horror and awe of the Inferno. "So I down to the waterside," he wrote, "and there saw a lamentable fire. Poor Michel's house as far as the Old Swan, all in one flame." Pepys's diary offers a unique perspective on the fire. They chronicle the physical destruction and emotional impact on London's inhabitants. Pepys recorded the plight of refugees and the spread of despair. Pepys's diary stands as a testament to the enduring human spirit. His words remind us of the fragility of civilization and the power to rebuild. Section 5. The stench of despair. As the Great Fire raged, the stench of despair hung heavy in the smoke-filled air. The initial shock had given way to a numbing sense of loss. The streets of London were eerily silent, save for the crackling of embers and mournful cries. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning wood. The fire claimed buildings and countless lives. Bodies lay buried beneath the rubble, silenced by the flames. The Thames flowed black and sluggish, choked with debris and ashes. Ships lay beached and burning, their masts pointing at the sky. The fire was finally dying down, its flames flickering and fading. But the damage had been done. London lay in ruins, its streets littered with debris. The stench of despair clung to the ruins, a grim reminder of the Inferno's legacy. From the ashes, as the acrid smoke cleared, revealing the skeletal remains of London, a haunting silence fell upon the city. The once mighty metropolis, now a desolate landscape, stood as a chilling testament to the fire's fury. The air, heavy with the scent of burnt wood, carried a ghostly echo of the Inferno's roar. The citizens of London began to trickle back to the smouldering ruins that had once been their homes. Their faces, etched with exhaustion and grief, reflected the profound sense of loss. They picked through the debris, searching for any salvageable remnants of their former lives. Amidst the ashes, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. The spirit of London had not been extinguished. Survivors, bound by shared loss, began to share what little food and shelter they had. Strangers helped strangers, small acts of kindness, flickers of humanity. The task ahead was daunting, the scale of the destruction almost incomprehensible. Yet even as they mourned, the people of London looked to the future, determined to rebuild stronger. Section 2. A Phoenix Rises. From the ashes of destruction, a new London began to emerge. The Great Fire swept away buildings and outdated practices, creating a blank slate for a new city. King Charles II appointed a commission to oversee the city's reconstruction. Sir Christopher Wren was tasked with designing a new St. Paul's Cathedral. His design, with soaring arches and domes, became a beacon of hope. Throughout London, scenes of reconstruction took place. New buildings of brick and stone rose from the ruins. Wider streets replaced narrow alleys to prevent fire spread. The citizens embraced the rebuilding with determination and unity. The Great Fire of London, a tragedy of immense proportions, left an indelible mark on the city's landscape and memory. From the ashes arose a new London, stronger and more resilient. The fire forged a spirit of unity and determination. The rebuilding was a testament to the enduring human spirit. The Great Fire ultimately served as a catalyst for positive change, shaping London into the magnificent city we know today. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe and share. See you at the history.